You may have heard lenses described with many terms: wide angle, telephoto, macro, zooms and primes, not to mention fast and slow lenses. When you break it down, it really isn't as complicated as it sounds. Your image begins at the front of the lens. This is the pathway of light into the camera. All too often, people put the emphasis on a good camera and they forget about the lenses. But for me, it should almost be the other way around. The lens is what you're paying for. That's where to spend the money. You want the clarity, those optics. That's what's going to create your image first. It's worth the investment to get some good quality optics so you can capture your image, get that beautiful pathway of light, those good crisp quality images into the camera. That's the most important part. Lenses are generally separated into 3 categories: wide angle, standard, and telephoto. These categories are defined by something called focal length. Focal length is measured in millimetres. It does refer to how the optics operate inside the lens, but to simplify this, it basically refers to how much your camera can see in its field of view when you use a particular lens. For example, a wide-angle lens has a wider field of view. A lens which has a focal length of around 35mm or shorter is generally classed as a wide angle. This type of lens allows you to include a large amount of a scene within your frame. This is ideal for when shooting landscapes, interiors, or if you've got a large group of people in a smaller space. Standard lenses usually range from around 50 to 85mm. A focal length around 50mm replicates the same field of view and perspective that we're used to seeing with the human eye. This type of lens is a good all-rounder for subjects which are close or a medium distance away, so it's ideal for travelling or shooting standard portraits. Telephoto lenses have a focal length around 70 to 200 or 300mm. Telephotos have a much more narrow field of view, but it does mean that subjects that are further away in the distance appear closer than they would to the human eye. A telephoto changes perspective and compresses the background, so objects in the background of our frame now appear much closer than they did before. This is ideal for shooting wildlife, sports, or subjects which are really far away. Try not to worry too much about the numbers. All you need to learn is how focal length and which millimetre lens you choose has an effect on your photos. A simple way to remember is to think the smaller the number, the wider the field of view. What focal length actually means is how much your camera can see. Take for example this lighthouse behind me. If you were a landscape photographer, you might want to capture the whole scene. So you'd use a wide angle. You want to see the sky, the rocks, the sea, just create an atmosphere. So you'd be looking at a wide angle. If you weren't that interested in the sea and the sky and you want to focus in a little bit on the lighthouse but still incorporate the other elements, you would go for a standard lens. If then you really were interested in just the lighthouse and you're not bothered about the sea and the sky and the rocks, you just want to get right in there on the lighthouse, you choose a telephoto. So really you've just got to decide what is it that interests you, what inspires you the most, and make a choice from there. A big learning curve for me was when I first moved to New Zealand as a kid when I was 21. We had to photograph just about anything and everything, and my portrait lenses didn't stand up. One night we were photographing sports, another day we were photographing interiors, so we needed the real spectrum from wide angle to macro to zoom sports lenses. We needed it all. So that was a great introduction to me to figure out what lenses I needed for which subject. What is a prime lens?
Prime lenses have great optical quality, but they have fixed focal lengths, so you cannot zoom. Primes come in a variety of focal lengths, from wide angle all the way through to super telephoto. Just remember that they are fixed, so zooming is not an option. Prime lenses often produce superior quality images, which are extremely clear. This is why they're frequently used in portraiture.
Both of these lenses both actually cover the same focal length at some point, but one is a prime and one is a zoom. This means that this one is fixed. So if I want to get closer to my subject, I physically have to move. With this one, I can stand in the same position and just zoom.
If I stand in the same spot and use a zoom lens, I can capture these three compositions just from twisting the barrel of the lens and zooming into my subject.
That's especially helpful if you're in a situation where you can't get any closer to your subject. That's when a zoom can really help you out. You can just reframe, recompose, and do what you want without having to direct and move your model.
If I use a prime lens, which has a fixed focal length, I have to walk towards my subject and move closer each time in order to achieve the same composition as I did with the zoom.
For me, if I knew that I was always going to be photographing somebody at the same length, in the same place, I'd go with the prime. So which is the best lens? Well, that depends on your needs. So I would say, when you're first starting out, you need something that's an all-rounder. So maybe a zoom lens that you can walk around with if you're going travelling, if you want to take a few portraits, something that's got some versatility would be good for you. Once you want to start to experiment a little more, I think a good way is to hire lenses. You can hire them for 1-2 days, get used to them, see how you like them. See, this is great. This is a 50mm, this is a great walk-around lens. And that's perfect for your day-to-day shots. So taking portraits, or when you're out and about, take some shots with this. This is great. It's lightweight and it's perfect. This one is also good, but this is for photographing sports or wildlife. But if you're me, this is heavy. So if you want to get out there and you want to photograph wildlife and sports, try this. Rent it. But be warned, if you rent it, you're probably going to buy it. So another thing to bear in mind is that once you've sort of decided what range you're going to be shooting within for whatever needs you have, there's almost then 2 tiers of what you can spend and how crazy you can go with this. I remember specifically thinking, okay, well, I need a good 50mm lens, and why, when I was looking online, was one 3 times the price of the other. They both said they were 50mm, but why is this one 3 times the price?
The reason for the difference in price all comes down to aperture and light. These are both 50mm lenses, but yet they're very different. One is capable of letting in significantly more light than the other, as the aperture can be opened up much wider. This is a luxury which you will pay for, as it enables you to shoot in lower light. With each extra f-stop available, this allows double the amount of light into your camera. Lenses which open up to very wide apertures like this are referred to as fast lenses. Macro lenses allow you to focus incredibly close up and create shots where your subject can appear life-size within the frame, even though it could be quite small in real life. They also capture an incredible amount of detail, so they're ideal for flowers or insects, but try using them on anything. The detail and patterns that can be seen close up in all kinds of objects can result in some great abstract photography. If you do not know where to start, I would recommend a standard zoom lens. This way you can walk around and get used to your lens without the worry of compression and distortion. Having a little zoom available to you may also be helpful as you learn about composition. As you start to identify which subjects interest you the most, you can always tailor your lens collection to suit your needs. Rent a lens for a few days and see if it works for you before you make your purchase. Just try to invest as much as you can afford on great optical quality so your images are crystal clear and pin sharp.